Hi guys, another video on investing that I think is valuable, ethical investing, um, or yeah, slash um, investing for dummies. I think a good way to approach investing is also to exclude certain categories. That makes life a lot easier, and I should have done a lot more consistently because they waste so much time. Also, for example, real estate. Should you ever invest in real estate? Um, well, it's ethical, of course, a house or multiple houses and rent them out. There's nothing wrong with that ethically. Um, but is it a good investment? Can it be a good investment? Um, I have been going back and forth in the past about this, often saying no, but then I start to say yes if it's indeed leveraged and so you can borrow most of the money because these are good loans in contrast to most loans are bad loans. If you get, for example, a loan from your broker, um, you can be margin called on that. That's not good. But you never or very rarely do you get margin called on a loan that you take to invest in the real estate. Even if you go underwater and your loan is bigger than the value of your real estate, you won't be called on it. And so the bank will not call you, say, hey, sorry, but your collateral went below the value of the loan. You're now gonna have to pay it off with the collateral that is actually has gone down. So that's a bad loan. That's what I did, borrowing money from my broker, and you can also do it in the crypto world with crypto loans. And I'm not gonna do that anymore because that's really a bad loan. It's not a good deal to have to pay back when you actually are not in a position to do so and have to liquidate assets at low prices because you're forced to do so. That's not a good deal. So from that perspective, I thought, okay, and actually you can have compound annual growth rate returns of like 15% if you invest in the real estate leveraged and the market goes up with say 5% or 10%, but you're leveraged, and so you're investing with 3 times more capital than you've put in because you borrowed most of the money from banks. And then yes, you can have a compound annual growth rate of 15% or so on your capital. That's of course a good investment. There I agree, but are we in such a scenario today? And there I don't think that's the case. Of course, certain regions in the world will be in such a scenario, yes, but for example, a war zone or a zone that was at war for a long time, for example, Yemen. I didn't study Yemen or Syria, but they've been war zones, or Lebanon, or Afghanistan, or Iraq. Yeah, sure, probably investing in real estate there can have very high returns because the market is probably very cheap because there is so little capital. Not a banking system that's operational. Loans are very hard to get, also in Africa, many countries. And you have also population growth, strong population growth, combined with relatively cheap prices and a banking system that still needs to be developed. And so yes, there is upwards potential for real estate to be similar great investments as we've seen them in the West so often the past 40 years or 50 years, 60 years. Real estate have been great investments especially if you leveraged it up. But yeah, I think because interest rate cycles have to be respected, it's not reasonable to say, hey, interest rates will stay historically low for the next 10-20 years. Like, you can't make such an argument. That may be possible. It just happened in Japan also. Interest rates were low and I continue to be low for 10 years or even maybe 20 years, but that's not the pattern of the past. The pattern of the past is that interest rates go up and down through cycles, and so it is most likely that interest rates will continue to go up over the next 40 years, and then this, with some exceptions in the world like war zones, then the real estate is not a good investment category from that perspective. And another perspective is competition. As Peter Thiel explained, like investments like, for example, a restaurant or a bar or a hairdresser, can you get rich with these things? The answer is no, you can't. There are, of course, some exceptions. Gordon Ramsay did well with his restaurants, but those are exceptions. In general, it is very hard to make. It's possible to make a living, yes, but it's hard to become rich from industries with lots of competition. To start a business where you have lots of competition, you cannot ask much extra money for your service because you're not unique in the market. If you ask too much money, they go somewhere else. Even if you have a great product, it still needs to be competitively priced, or they'll just go somewhere else. And that's the case with real estate also. You're competing with so many other people to offer something. Every butcher, every bakery, every lawyer, every doctor that has some spare money will either invest in stocks or real estate. And so you're not really index funds then, or real estate, and so you're competing. You have so much competition that no. Like that's another argument against real estate, is that you don't have an edge. And so for these reasons, I think real estate should be excluded from a portfolio, with the exception of your own house, which is a different story, because there it's not only a financial investment, it's also an investment for security and freedom. If it's your own house, you can change it the way you want. You don't have to ask permission. And security in that, well, your own house is a security because you do need one place to live in. One, not two. If it's your second place, it's not a security because you don't need two places to live in, but you do need one. So in the worst case scenario where you this very, very low chance that everything goes wrong with your investments, then at least you have this, and you need this, but you don't need two. The moment you have two, it's actually not a security, it's an investment, and then all the other things come at play, if it's worthwhile or not, if it's a competitive investment or not. But that's not the case for your own house because you need one. So that's my opinion on real estate. What other asset classes I think should be excluded? I think bonds belong there also. Loans to other people or to companies or to governments for a fixed interest rate are not good investments, because you can easily get a higher return in other investment classes. And so it should not be done. With the exception of maybe loans that offer a very high interest rate, where you can also get collateral, so high security with a high interest rate, but that's hard to get. But if you can get something like that, then you could make a case that the risk reward is good. But in general, bonds from companies and governments are not good investments. The interest rate that they provide, if you know that real inflation is around 5%, then you know that actually no, you're not even covering for your inflation. And so in today's climate, bonds are not good investments, so they should not be invested in. That could change in 20 years. If interest rates are considerably higher, a lot higher, then that's a different story. But today we're in a low interest rate environment, likely for another at least 10 years, and so bonds are not good investments. And the other argument against it is, are they ethical? That depends who you're borrowing your money to. But for example, if you borrow your money to a government, then it depends what that government does with the money. But if that government is doing evil things, then actually you're financing that, and that's also not ethical. Huh? And certain companies also fall under that. Huh? For example, big pharma has proven to be just evil. Huh? What they did the past few years, um, colluding with other evil powers in developing vaccines that are not that are harmful and kill people, um, and even promoting it to give it to pregnant women. Um, that was just a step way too far. And so to borrow money to these companies, even when they are solid bonds, they say solid bonds with low counterparty risk, low chance to go broke or default, then still it's not an ethical loan. Same to the US government, who has proven to do too much evil in the world. You should not be like, investing in these bonds, actually in treasuries, is unethical, because you're financing an evil empire. Of course, this is a broad generalization. I mean, actually, I don't think the United States is overall an evil empire. No, actually, I think they bring a lot of good to the world, the United States as a whole, and are still actually give me the most hope of a better future, because democracy works there the best. And one moment. There was an election stolen, in my opinion, by the Biden and Democrats 3 years ago. So election fraud happens there also, but at least people talk about it. At least people are aware of it. In most countries, they are not even aware that these things happen. But what you do notice that actually the same kind of elite seems to always win the elections. Huh? And if there is anyone popular standing up, they are called a populist, and they will be taken care of. And even if they have a high number of votes, they will not be able to rule, because they will be excluded by the ruling establishment. So I do think that this dynamic is democracy is more developed in the United States, but what the United, on average, what the government of the United States has done with the different presidents is just lots of evil things they did in the world, toppling regimes, especially the agencies. The CIA has really done some evil shit around the world. So I think that financing these governments is not a good idea, and the same applies to most other Western governments who have been just following the lead of the United States in these kind of evil things, or are being suppressed by them. But why would you borrow your money to governments like they're like, at least look for some companies that do some ethical and good things in the world, that you're sure like they're not actually murdering people. That's a better investment. So a more ethical one, but still it's not a good one financially. So I think bonds can be excluded, and for the same reason saving accounts can also be excluded, which is the same as a bond. You borrow your money to a bank basically with a savings account, you get an interest, but is it a good investment? Well, some banks are ethical, but financially it's not a good investment because the interest you receive is not high enough. So I think you can exclude these things, and that leaves not, and the same for cash actually. Although cash is of course a great temporary investment, it's a very bad long-term investment, because you don't even get interest. Or yes, you can get interest. Actually, now the interest on cash is the same as it is on long-term bonds, around 4 or 5%. When you look at U.S. Treasuries, cash is Treasury notes, is a very short-term debt. but there the same applies as bonds. You're borrowing your money to a government, but let's say that you keep it on a high interest rate account. You could say that's cash also. Yes. I mean, interest is a lot better now after 1 year of interest rates going up a lot. So you could say temporarily, financially, it can make sense to hold things in cash. But I would say it's only really acceptable if it's used as a temporary store of value while you wait, while you're looking for the actual investment that you want to make. To hold long-term cash as an investment, I don't think that's a good investment. I've shared in the past the track record of cash over the past 100 years, and it's just the same as inflation. And so basically it's a big loss of opportunity. And that's not how you're gonna make money, by not investing. It's basically not investing. You need to invest to be able to make money. So not investing you can do if you don't have any idea where to put your money, but you're losing opportunity. And so you should try to find where you can deploy that capital. So yeah, those are the three asset classes that come to my mind as can be excluded. And so actually what asset classes are left over? Well, art. Of course, stocks are left over, but index funds are also very overcrowded. Crypto is left over. Hard assets, commodities, gold, crypto. But crypto is a new industry, lots of scams. And what else do we have? Art, but that's a very specialized industry, very difficult to you need to become an expert there. So, but yeah, there are not so many actually potential investments to invest in when you look at asset classes. But within those asset classes, there is a huge amount of offerings. In the world of stocks, of course, there are lots of choices, and many or some big winners will prove to be big winners, many will prove to be losers, and you can have your hands full just focusing on that asset class. Crypto, the same, and commodities, the same. They are hard assets, but you have the commodities themselves, and you have all the commodity companies. And in stocks, you have so many offerings. You have many value stocks also. So yeah, these are actually the asset classes that are left over after you exclude the other big ones. And that's, you have also other, but that's for another video, instruments, investment instruments. Actually, let me just share that here also. Certain investment instruments I think also should be excluded. And there I've changed my mind after such a bad experience. But I think that the going short is not should not be done. The idea is you borrow an asset from someone else, you sell it in the market, and you'll pay it back later. But that's a loan. There the question is, should you borrow money from other people to invest? And the answer to that question is no. If it's a bad loan, yes. If it's a good loan, a good loan means you can pay back when times are good, and you're not forced to pay back when times are bad. So when you use a system where you have to give them collateral and the collateral goes down, you're gonna have to top it up. That's a bad loan. But if you don't have to give collateral and they say, yeah, you pay it back every year, only the interest, or every year a small amount, that's a good loan. They can't force you to pay back the loan suddenly in full. That's a good loan. Typically, you can get that from France. Fools, the 3 F's. Huh? Fools, France, and who's the 3rd F? Huh? And family, of course. Huh? They can give you good loans. If you can get them, go for it. Huh? Because they can't force you to pay back. Huh? But should you take loans from other people that can force you to pay back, such as your broker? No, and that's shorting. Shorting is, yeah, you can borrow an asset, but if it goes wrong, you have to pay it back, and it can go infinitely wrong. So you have to top up the account constantly. If the asset that you borrowed goes up in value, you constantly have to top it up. And that's how you can go broke quickly. So it's a bad loan. You shouldn't do it. Shorting. Only if you devise a system where you short and you keep the asset, you don't sell it, and so you're not really short, but you keep the asset that you borrowed so that you can always pay it back. Okay, that's another story. But if you're gonna sell that asset in the market, then actually you are truly short, and you are truly in a position where your losses can be piled up infinitely, and it's an instrument I don't think should be used. You can also short with options, and that's different. There you don't have unlimited losses. The value of your put option can go to 0. So there, I think it's not a bad loan. It's a financial instrument that can be used, and I would say that is possible to use, but it's a very difficult instrument to use, because not only do you have to have the direction correct, also the time you need to have correct, and the timing is something that's extremely difficult to get right. And what other instruments do we have? Well, yeah, leverage. Leverage, I don't think you shouldn't do either. Borrowing against your assets, it's not a good idea, because it's a bad loan. Don't do that. You're gonna have to be forced to pay it back during the worst times. Don't do that. Instead, sell some assets. It forces you to get rid of the worst investments. If you want to buy something else, force yourself to sell some of your other investments, and to keep your portfolio clean and in good order. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think I'm wrong about something, if you think I forgot something, let me know. Bye.